Welcome to the Laurent Collective podcast, where we go deeper than just surface talk.
Each week, we'll explore everything from family, business, creativity, culture, and faith.
To make sure not to miss an episode, be sure to subscribe and hop on to Instagram at Laurent Collective to chat with us about this episode.
Hello.
Hey, what's up?
We are back.
Why do we always say we're back?
We're back. Obviously, we are, but it's good to be with you guys today. And today we are going to talk about the topic of rest. And I know we have touched on this, like we dabbled a little bit in it in past
I think we always
episodes.
kind of touch on it from time to time in everything, right?
Exactly.
So
probably because we're preaching to ourselves when we do that too.
Well, I think it's just on the forefront of our minds at the moment because of the time of year.
Yes. So we thought we would talk about rest and, as depending what holiday you celebrate and stuff like that. Christmas is approaching though, and New Year's and that kind of thing. And I feel like it doesn't matter, talking to some other friends that celebrate different holidays and that kind of thing. It doesn't matter what you celebrate. For some reason, just November and December turn into craziness. For everybody, and it's just very busy and exhausting, and depending what industry you work in and that kind of thing, it just, unfortunately, you come to a place where you're exhausted. So we thought we'd talk about some things that we are doing and planning to do, but also more importantly, thinking about like the new year that's coming and how do we build this. And we're saying this again because we haven't done the best of this, especially towards the end of the year.
Yeah.
How do you build in rest and so you don't get to that place of exhaustion? And so, we thought we'd chat about that a little bit.
Yeah, I just think it's so important because, you step into these last 2 months of the year usually, and it feels like, oh my gosh, like this is the time when you're with family and you're relaxing and you're enjoying each other and all that kind of stuff. But then actually really it just gets just so chaotic, I think, in a lot of ways. And like you schedule extra things that you wouldn't normally do, and you're spending more time with work parties or school functions and all these different things. And your schedule gets so out of whack and crazy. And then by the end of December, I feel like you just completely collapse. At least, again, I feel like I'm going to be talking to myself
throughout this whole thing.
Throughout this whole podcast, because I think, yes, we've definitely put ourselves in that situation for sure this month. And so, I think it's just because that feeling and that mentality, I think, is on the forefront, at least for me, on my mind. And I thought we just thought it would be really fun to talk about a little bit and our hopes for next year and how we want to set better rhythms of rest moving forward. So
and I think you said, and I think this is right in some ways, of like I feel like there's like two sides of the fence. Some of us really look forward to that time with like family or extended loved ones and stuff like that, and that is restful. And then some of us, we look at that and that's like super stressful and it's not restful. Or maybe you're somewhere in between. You're like, it's not restful, it's not stressful, but it's neither, like, but it's not I don't consider rest time. It's busy.
Yeah.
And I can say, like, in the past when we lived in the States, like our Christmas day was like filled with driving 2 hours and going from one place to another and that kind of stuff. So I did not end the day feeling rested. It wasn't bad things.
Yeah,
but
exactly. That's the thing. It's not
end the
bad.
day feeling rested.
Yeah.
I was more like, I can't wait to go to bed, kind of thing. And so there are all kinds of situations, I think, that we can sometimes put a bit too much emphasis. Why can't I say that word?
Emphasis.
Right? Thank you.
There you go.
Wow. I need more caffeine this morning. That we say like, because we watch the movies and stuff, and Christmas Day is supposed to be just lounging in your PJs and relaxing and stuff like that. And some of us get to do that, and some of us don't. That's not what it's like. So we're not saying that this has to be on the holiday or something like that. But how do you build this in general? And you may not be in a place that you can do this in the next couple of weeks either, because of, again, you may work for, I don't know, some industry where you're delivering packages to people and stuff like that. Or, we have been there where you have to work in order to, you don't really have that much vacation time and stuff like that. So, but we still believe that you can still find a couple of hours, a couple of moments to rest.
I think, I don't know, as I've been reflecting this month and realizing the amount of stuff that we do have going on and stuff like that, I think a lot of times when I'm in the moment with a certain activity or something that we're doing, I feel like in some ways I'm already thinking about tomorrow's event or whatever. And so I'm not necessarily as present in the current activity or thing. And so I think making sure, having space to rest, having space to be potentially, at least in my mind, I feel like maybe will help me be more present in those current moments when we're with people or when we're doing something with the kids or whatever. I don't know. I was just thinking about that. Just the idea of, making sure feeling rest into certain aspects of this month and moving forward will help being present in the current moments and the current activities and things that you would do and stuff like that. So,
well, and we obviously come from the American perspective, and I know
sure.
different cultures take rest and that kind of thing differently. I mean, there's so many cultures in Europe that I'm like, oh, I wish I had more of that in me of, it's okay to take a nap in the afternoon and that's expected
Yeah.
and stuff like that. But we just, unfortunately, I think some of it's slowly coming out of us a little bit, but it's going to take some time of like that American, like, work hard. And friends are always shocked here when we tell them, normally you only get 10 days of vacation or holiday time when you start a job, and they just do not understand.
That's in America.
That's in America.
Yeah.
Because here, what is it? It's like at least 23 or 24 days to start off.
Yeah, I think it's like 24.
I mean, this is fresh out of university that you would have that. It's not like you have built that up over 10, 20 years that you get that. And so we definitely have that in us. And so often I catch myself and I catch us overcommitting or those kind of things. But then, and sure, other people around us might be doing the same thing. But, it's like one friend, I think it was like a year after we moved here, and we had not taken, because we did not understand how much holiday time that was and that we had
I think a friend even said last night, we were talking to them, like in America, usually you work as much as you possibly can and store up all of your vacation days to like 1 or 2 times a year.
Yes.
Where here it feels like you space it out a lot more, and there's certain times of years that are, most people do take holiday time or
they'll take
time.
or they'll say like, I'm having a stressful time right now, I'm gonna take a 4-day week and stuff. And for us, like, how can you do that? And then we keep remembering, oh wait, no, we can do that too now. And so, again, depending on your context, that's not maybe available to you. But I think, we also, from the American side of things, have the idea that if we are resting, we're being lazy. And I know that is, for me, like, that is a huge thing that I think, like, well, if I'm just sitting and relaxing on our sofa with a cup of tea and a book, like, this feels lazy. There should be something I should be doing. And I fight that constantly. And Pat, you're actually pretty good at telling me, like, that's okay that you're doing that.
Definitely.
And that kind of thing. But I think that is a huge thing, depending, again, how you grew up and that kind of thing, that can be really ingrained in you, that, like, if you are relaxing, you are being lazy. And that's quite the opposite. I mean, sure, there probably is a point that, like, you should get up and do something, but that's not what we're talking about here. That's a whole, that's not, that's, yes, get up, take some action, that kind of thing. But
I do think you just called me lazy, though.
I did not call you lazy. I did not. But I think that's, what I constantly have to fight back with. And, like, I do remember I had a friend here who is British who, I said something. I was like, oh, I just feel like we're busy and we've just been going from one thing to another. She was like, you should just have a glass of wine and read a book and take a bath tonight. And why haven't you done that this week? And I was like, I didn't know I could. I mean, I could, but it was just, she kind of looked at me like, you're crazy. Well, you can't go like that, like that type of thing. And so, I think it's just, again, you need to figure out what is restful to you as well. I think that is huge. Everyone rests in different ways. Obviously, the perfect form of rest is like making sure you're getting enough sleep. And there's no such thing as like catching up on sleep. I hear a lot of Americans in particular say like, oh, I've been working so hard and working late nights. I can't wait till I have a break and then I'm just going to sleep the whole time. And like, our bodies actually need it on a regular basis. And I am here to say, Pat's smiling at me right now. In particular, I need like 8 hours isn't even enough for me. I usually have to sleep 9 hours to feel like I'm actually, and that to me, when I say that out loud, I think, oh, that's so lazy. I'm just laying in bed, but I'm sleeping. Like my body actually needs that.
Yeah.
And I ran so many years where I wasn't even close to even 7 or 8 hours. And so you have to figure that out for your body and things like that too. I mean, our whole family can tell a difference if I haven't had good sleep.
Yeah. Or we do know if you are actually like sleeping a lot or not doing much, something is either you're sick or something's wrong.
Stressed, yes.
Or you're stressed. And so I think again, like when Maya is like resting or doing something, we're kind of like caught off guard a little bit. So.
But that's also.
But you're learning to.
I'm learning
be better
to
at
rest,
that,
so
yeah.
that isn't my family isn't looking at me. And
Yeah.
again, that's some of the Enneagram stuff. I'm a 3, and I stress to a 9, and that kind of stuff. And so I am trying to learn though that sometimes the kids are like, "Is everything okay?" I'm like, "Actually, everything's perfectly fine." Like this weekend, I sat and read a book for a while and stuff like that, and and then what was cool is later in the day then. Our kids did the same. There was no electronics on. There was nothing on in our house except for the lights of the Christmas tree. And the kids were all reading a book, and one of them was coloring in a coloring book.
Yeah.
And so again, like if you have kids and others are watching, like they pick up on it. They pick up on the realization that like even when school might be telling them you have to study 24/7 and things like that, like you can't do that. You also need to have downtime and rest time. So again, whatever rest looks like for you, you can sketch and draw and paint, and somehow you decipher that away from work stuff a little bit.
Definitely.
And that's restful for you to like explore and have fun.
Because in
way.
some ways, it might end up actually turning into work.
It might eventually, but that's not your intention.
But it's not my intention. So I think a lot of times where I don't know, compartmentalize. I think the idea of like, okay, this is my time for just me, and I'm creating or I'm doing certain things, and then now I'm in work mode, and I'm only doing stuff for clients or commissions or whatever, and like, so I can somehow do that in some ways, which is helpful. But at the same time too, like I think if I'm drawing or sketching, sometimes I just don't feel it. And that's because I probably do need to just do something else or relax or read a book, or I might play some video games from time to time, things like that just are a little bit more mindless things that I can just rest and kind of let my subconscious kind of do its thing. So
something
or a walk.
Yeah, so I was just going to mention the walk. Something that we have picked up on the culture here and is very more European as well, that is walks. As people just go on walks all the time. Like you meet a friend, you go on a walk. Like and that's not just because we live in London. That is totally in the countryside and everything.
Yeah.
And we've talked about, I think, cultural differences, the idea of like paths through people's like fields and stuff. And it's not, so it's set up here definitely to be able to do that in a much user-friendly way, I guess. But the idea of just like taking a walk, like, it's a big thing here. It's like the Christmas Day walk. Like you go as a family and you go on a long walk and that kind of thing.
Well,
but
sometimes they would even say hike.
Yes. Sometimes they say hike. And there's just something about that we really enjoy in our house now too, is like our walk. Sometimes we have a destination, like we're going to go get hot cocoa here or something like that, and often it's just like, let's just go on a walk and we can chat and things like that. And we have, to the point that like our older son Zane, when he's on break and stuff like that, he'll be like, hey, I'm gonna go take a walk on the river, and he just goes and takes a walk and listens to some music and stuff like that. And so there's something about like sure, like moving your body and stuff like that, but it doesn't have to be this intense like workout type of thing. It can also just be just a gentle walk.
Yeah, and I think too, now that you mentioned Zane, like just seeing like he does that, like even on a weekend, like a normal weekend, he'll be like, you know what, can I go for a walk? And I think what such an amazing rhythm that he's setting up already as an almost 15-year-old, that he's setting up this idea of like, I just need a break and I'm going to go just take a walk. Like, I wish I would have probably been better at that. Like, even in our 20s, I wish we were better at thinking about that instead of just go, and things like that.
Well, and because he's been in an intense season of studying for exams and stuff like that. And so, well, we've had to definitely tell him, like, you have to shut off the computer and you need to go to bed because that's just as important. But yeah, doing the walk type of thing is something. And if you're thinking like that sounds weird, because honestly, until we moved here, I would have said, like, first of all, where am I going to walk? Because at least where we lived, it was like our little neighborhood we could walk in. And then how would that happen? But we could have easily, drove someplace or something like that to go on a walk in the park.
Sure.
And that kind of thing. But like just going even, on a walk just around our neighborhood and things like that. And for me, I no longer stick stuff into my ear to listen to and stuff. I just walk and take deep breaths and stuff like that so I can just have that restful time. So that is another thing that is a way of resting. So again, you have to figure out so for instance, for me, TV gets my mind going a little too much. And so when sometimes we'll have an evening that we've set aside for like a rest time or that kind of thing, and Pat may suggest watching a show, and sometimes like, can we just like read books and be on the sofa and that kind of thing? Because to me, it's harder for me to fall asleep if I've been watching TV and that kind of stuff. Not everyone is wired that way. But like pay attention to when you do an activity and how you feel after, and how like, do you feel rested, or do you feel more like switched on, that you're suddenly like brain's working a ton and that kind of thing. Like figure out what those things are, because they're definitely like, if even with, for us, when I work in the evening, if I work to a certain point, like I have to take a hot shower before I go to bed, because that's like telling my mind we're done. We're moving into
your
rest.
Mind, it takes your mind
and where some people don't struggle with that, for me though, I have to have like a marker thing that's like, we're done,
for me, I don't have to do that.
You don't have you somehow you can do that, but that is not how I'm wired. So again, each of us is uniquely wired, and rest is going to look different. It does mean though, like, I think my tendency is, I'm like, ooh, we have a day off, I'm going to organize everything in the house, or those kinds of things. And so I think that's important of figuring. I've realized though, that's actually not restful. No. That's just me trying to find more stuff to get done and check it off of a list. So do pay attention if you're like, oh, but it's restful for me to organize. And I probably said that for a lot of years as well. And then I realized actually it's just me not wanting my body to like settle into rest, or I was feeling lazy because I was sitting and doing something. Now I will say, like our middle child, he find restful for him is like cooking and baking and stuff. It really is. So I mean, there are things that are actual activities, like we said, like walking and things like, there are actual like active, engaged things you may do, but you find it really restful. That is totally,
I think it's just thinking about those things that refresh you, really. Like I even know some of our friends that are, they are refreshed and recharged when they're spending time with people. So again, like even that, like thinking about, okay, well, if I'm feeling like I need to be in a restful season to be recharged and all that kind of stuff, maybe there's just some, you schedule some strategic like coffees with people and things like that. If that's you, if you get recharged and refreshed from spending, quality time with people, like that's super helpful. I guess just paying attention, again, like Maya said, like how do you uniquely rest? How do you uniquely feel refreshed and recharged? So that, you can take the best step forward in whatever else you're doing on a day-to-day basis kind of thing. So,
so it is thinking about, how do you feel rest? And then the question is, how do you build that into your schedule? Because I mean, and we're speaking from people who have come from places where we're like, we have like a weekend blocked off, or maybe just like a Saturday or something like that. If we are not doing anything that day, we call it a Sabbath day just because we consider it like it's just it's a day to really rest. You could put rest day on your calendar, it could, whatever you want to put on there. So what we have done in the past, and I'm saying past because I think the past 3 months we have not done this. And so we are again saying, like, we are realizing as this year wraps up and we're feeling like we're feeling right now where we're pretty tired and stuff like that. I think both of us have come to realize we have gotten out of a lot of some rhythm. Some of that, we have been in a season where we moved house, we've had visa things going on, we've had all these we've had a lot that have thrown all of that off. So, you will go through seasons of life where that is the case, but it's paying attention of like, oh, this season's now wrapping up. Like we need, and we should have, looking back, we should have built in stuff that would have been wiser, and we probably wouldn't be feeling how we're feeling right now. But we didn't. And so here we are. And we're looking into the new year and thinking like, okay, so what we have done in the past that has worked so well, and we will be going back to this, is that we have looked at least 3 months in advance. And then when the next month comes, then I go another 3 months in advance. I literally do make it, for me, again, if I don't make it a to-do, it will not get done. And so I make it a to-do to like put in several things into our calendar. One is those rest days. I would love to say that our family has been able to do it every single week, but that has not been realistic. Our goal is always that we have 2 of those rest days a month. And so, you know, maybe it's on a Sunday, maybe it's on a Saturday, whatever. Maybe the kids have a day off of school or something. We do try and make it like a family rest day. So that the kids, again, they're seen. And they have like, we do set it up where the idea is like there's no work. You're not on electronics unless we watch a family movie together. That's the only reason that the TV goes on.
Or whatever,
Yeah, if we're watching something together. Usually for our family, again, this is going to be unique to each family. Usually for our family, it means like some cooking and some baking. It usually means board games. You know, there's drawing, painting, all that kind of stuff. Often a walk, all of that.
We try not to like go out. If that like... We don't like try to go out to dinner or something like that. Like, yeah. So like that's another aspect of it.
Yeah, we just try and stay at home. I mean, often those days, literally, we don't ever get out of our pajamas.
Well, yeah, that's actually probably one of the values is don't get out of your PJs.
Yes, exactly. Sometimes if we change or Pat and I shower, the kids are like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
So that's one thing. Again, if I put it on the calendar, then if somebody says, "Are you available?" then I think this is the thing we have learned so much of is normally I would try to explain, "Oh, that's our family rest day. And this is because," no, I mean, if you want to explain that, fine. But actually just saying, actually, we have something going on that day because you've committed to rest that day. So I think I'm still learning that. I often will look and be like, "Oh, I can't because of this." You can just say you're not available. Yeah. Like, can we pick another date or that kind of thing? Or I can't help out that day. Like that's okay to say no, to hold that time. And then some other things that we did too. Again, some of you I know are in the situation like Pat and I that you might be working from home and you might have a bit more control over your schedule a little bit. And that if you own your own business and that kind of thing, because we do work on Sundays for a good chunk of the day. Like we also have Fridays off, but we have turned that into mostly a work day recently.
Yeah.
And so Fridays typically where we started off with a slow morning and that kind of thing, and we would try and find rest that day. And so that is something we need to go back to doing. Again, if you own your own business and have that kind of flexibility, or you work for somebody and you have flexibility, you can build in things when your kids aren't around. I'm speaking especially to parents as well.
Yeah.
That, are some time to rest together and have some downtime. And then also this is not, I mean, it's restful, but it's also important as we also put in like date nights. And to me, that is restful because it's, again, time for us without our kids around. Typically
with them not around.
I say that
we're doing air quotes because
most of our date nights in the past, 18 months, we're going on 2 years now with this COVID thing.
Yeah.
It's been longer than 18 months now, almost 2 years.
Yeah.
There hasn't been a lot of options to go out and do something. And so we've had to be creative or there's been financial constraints and like going out to eat or something like that is not a thing. And so we've had to be creative, and we should probably do a podcast on that in the new year or something, of different ideas if you are at
home dates.
Yeah. And trying to come up with different things, because you don't just always have to go out to eat or go see a movie or something like that. Right. You don't have to spend money. And so we often will make we'll make a meal in or something like that after the kids have gone to bed and that kind of thing. I say this and they often are so curious, so they'll come up and say, I mean, they're always doing? Like, what are you eating? Why don't we get that? We do get that, but we're like, go away.
Oh, it's mommy, dad, date night. Oh, come on, we just want to hang out with you guys.
But for us, again, that's restful. Now, it wouldn't be restful if I felt like we had to plan this elaborate thing every time we went on a date and stuff like that. Neither of us would find that restful. And so again, but that might be for you to like do that.
Yeah, that might be really
something that you guys find restful. So again, you have to find that rhythm and that kind of thing. But that is another thing. And also, we have typically blocked out, if we look at our week, and we have said, let's say typically on Wednesdays and Thursdays, the kids have these activities going on after school and that kind of stuff. But we have typically blocked off an evening of the week that we have said this is no work.
Yeah,
evening.
we try to do that. Yeah.
And that is because, again, with owning our own business and stuff like that, sometimes because of the way that things have worked and also everything else that we do here in London, sometimes there are evenings that we have to work. But then we have said, like, Wednesday nights after the kids go to bed and stuff like that, like there's nothing, we're done for the evening and we're resting, whatever shape or form that takes. But again, it's literally on the calendar. And so we can't do anything like, or we don't schedule things and stuff like that. And so I think that's what's important with it. So yeah, those are some different things that you can. I know it sounds horrible and it sounds so scheduled, and you struggled with this a lot, actually. Like, Pat likes to be a bit more spontaneous.
Yeah, I think I try to go a little bit more like how am I feeling rather than putting things on a schedule, if that makes any sense.
But, and I'm going to not argue with you, that's not the right phrase, but with that, if you do get to that point and you're going off of how you're feeling and you have scheduled things.
Sometimes it's too late.
Yeah, it's too late. Yeah. And so that's why I think even when you're like, oh, I don't need rest right now, I could keep going. Like, I think that's, again, I'm learning that as well of actually you probably do need it. And, you don't need to wait to the point that you're exhausted.
Oh, totally.
Kind of thing. And so I think, so I think that's something as you're thinking through the new year, is really like go through March or April and block off those days now. Yeah. And if something comes up, there is occasionally something that, it may be a really good friend's birthday, or that might be something I would change it for, or, something like that. Like, sure, well, I might move it and put it on that day, but then I'm going to move that rest day to the next day or something like that and shift it. But generally I try to honor it.
Get rid of it.
And not just get rid of it and say, some things, and sometimes it means you miss something, and that's okay. Like, it's more important to make sure you're rested and stuff like that. Or, sometimes we'll say we're not available that day and people are like, oh, well, let's look at a different date then, and that kind of thing, or that. So you just don't feel guilty for holding on to something that feels, I think when we have put something on the calendar that is just for us and not accountable to somebody else, we feel as if like, oh, I can cancel that and it's not a big deal. Like, don't view it that way. View it as super important that you're canceling on yourself if you do that and everything. So.
Yeah, and I think what's cool is like, even for our family, like our family actually, because we've created a rhythm with it that we've gotten way off of it right now, but in the past when we've been in a really good rhythm with these like rest days, our kids like absolutely look forward to it. Like, there's just something about that day that everybody looks forward to, because we know there is no agenda. We can just be together and be present with one another. And I think how can we like seep that feeling into everything else too? You want to kind of grab that kind of that sense and that magic of those days into those other days. So, so the biggest thing is, try to understand, how do you rest well? Like, what are those things that like are really allowing you to decompress, to really kind of in some ways shut your mind off and just to relax and to step into a place where you can just be. And so understanding how do you do that in the best way. And then we would suggest, because we're preaching to ourselves at the moment, is scheduling it, putting it on the schedule. Like Maya said, put it out 3 months in advance, set those days. And again, if people are asking you at certain times of the year, hey, do you want to do something on this day or whatever, and that was one of your rest days, being okay with saying, actually, no, there is something planned. Like, I actually am, that's something that is important to you. It's something that is helpful for you to be able to be the best you can be, because of these days, you're allowing yourself that rest. So I think understanding how you rest well and putting it on the schedule is always a key.
And I will give a little, like, just a quick note for the next coming weeks, depending if you're celebrating Christmas or you may just be around more family or those kinds of things. Something we've been very aware of with a couple of our kids is they, we have one that is a high introvert. And so being around that amount of people, even if he's totally enjoying his time, like he drains very quickly.
Yeah.
And so we learned pretty early in life with him, like if he drains that quickly, like when he was much younger, it was like a tantrum or an explosion or something like that. And when we picked up on it was always happening more when we were around more people. And so we picked up on the fact that like he actually needs a bit of rest during the day, and that's not going to make sense to a lot of the other family members. And so often it would be, let's go back to the room, let's just read some books, or let's just lay down and just be quiet. Or you can go in that room. Now he's old enough that he'll just be like, I know I need my time, I'm gonna go in my room by myself for a bit, and that kind of thing. And so, but I know that can be really weird with other family members, and then we have the opposite, where we have an extroverted son who gets tons of energy with being by other people, but then sometimes he does need a bit of time to just calm back down and reset, and that kind of thing. And he knows that too. And so we even had like code words with our kids when they were a little bit younger and stuff that they would say, like whisper to us, like frog or something like that. We'd be like, okay, great. Let's go back to where we're sleeping, and let's shut the door, and we'll just tell people you're taking a nap, even if you're not, or that kind of thing. And it might be they just, we went back there with them and colored for a little bit, or we set up their stuff that they could just be in the room by themselves and that kind of thing. And like, we as adults need that too.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Yeah.
I think it's sometimes easy to see it in your children, like, oh, I need to help them find that. But like, that's okay to do that when you're an adult too. And so I like, Pat laughs sometimes because I'll be like, why were you in the bathroom so long? And I'm like, I will use that as my escape and go and like sit in the bathroom just because it's quiet in there or something like that. But I could have just gone to the bedroom and been much more comfortable. And so I think as adults, we feel guilty if we're doing that. If we like exit for a little bit, and then we come back and we will respond to things in a much different way and that kind of thing. So that is completely okay to do during like the holidays and stuff like that. And I would highly recommend it as well. It's okay to take a deep breath and just sit in a room by yourself or go on a walk.
Yeah, that's great. Take a deep breath.
Yes, exactly. So we would love to hear from you guys as always on like because we are always in the process of learning on this. And so we'd love to hear rhythms and things like that you guys have done to find rest in your lives, or unique ways that you rest as well, and how you hold to it as well.
Yeah, that's really good.
Even in crazy seasons and that kind of thing. But we hope it's helpful as you step into the new year and thinking about how you can just set yourself up in a place that you're not feeling exhausted, and you can just build in that rest even when you think you don't need it, that you still have it built in. Yeah. So go do that right now. Go put it on your calendar and build in some rest days so you can feel refreshed. Thanks for joining us on today's episode of the Laurent Collective podcast. If you enjoyed today's podcast, be sure to subscribe and leave a review, which helps others find our podcast. Continue the conversation with us over on Instagram at Laurent Collective.
We look forward to going deeper than just surface talk with you again next week.